Hey, this is Brock from Eagle Crest Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how I can turn this maple, cherry, and walnut boards into a beautiful 3D cutting board. Let's get started. So the first thing we're doing is we're turning our blade to 30 degrees, and the reason why we're doing this is how we get the 3D effect. So by the first cut, we're cutting the one side of our board just to get started. So you see we have one cut there. Then the next thing we need to do is make that same 30-degree angle, but measure 3/4 of an inch out. This will give us our first parallelogram, and we're going to do this for all three pieces of our board. Once we put these boards together, you'll see how they get a 3D effect that once we multiply it by 20, 30, 40, 50 different pieces, it looks really, really nice. So here are the three pieces together. As you can see, they all fit together very nicely. That's how you know we got a good clean cut for all of our pieces. So for this next part here, we are gluing the three pieces back together. And what I want to say here is make sure you use food grade safe glue. I believe all of the Tide Bond glues are safe, but you always want to read the label because you'd be surprised at what can have toxic chemicals in it. And especially if you're going to be using this or giving this to someone else, you don't want them getting sick. What I recommend doing is putting this into your clamp, the two pieces, and then putting your third one on top. It seems to be the best option to keep everything smooth and make it easier to glue up. Now, people always say you shouldn't use tape for clamps. I know people are surprised by this, but I found that masking tape is the best option for this because you're not gluing straight flat to flat edges. You're gluing almost in a circular way. So this is the best way to get it really tight. And then you just wrap it around, leave it for a day to let it dry. Once that's done, you want to sand off the edges because you're not always going to have a perfectly smooth edge. And also you're going to have glue and a little bit of masking tape probably left over. But then once we do that, we want to see how thick our board's going to be. So what I have here is a chopping block set up. And what this will do is will stop the wood at the exact same spot so I get the exact same height on all of my cuts. Now you're going to see I made a mistake here and I did not clamp it tight enough. And on this next cut, you're going to watch how the piece actually moves. This will cause an issue later. Doesn't mean we can't fix it, but it's just going to cause a little bit more work. So now for the glue up, I put down a piece of plastic to help prevent the glue from sticking to my wooden bench. And now it's just a matter of putting all the pieces together. So they're all chopped up and you want to make sure they're all going in the same direction to give you that nice pattern. Now, once again, the part of clamping everything together can be a little bit tricky. So you see I have clamps going horizontally and vertically as well. And it's pretty easy to do, but just got to take a little bit of time. So this next part here, I just have a hand planer and I'm just going over to flatten everything. This was a little bit too big for my regular planer, so using the hand planer took a little bit more time, but was the only feasible option given that the size of the board was a little bit too big. So remember how before when I said I made a mistake and I didn't clamp it tight enough? Well, this is causing the issue and it made my pieces a little bit taller in a few areas. So what I'm doing now is cutting them off, which really isn't a big deal, but I would probably not recommend using this jig because this jigsaw is not the safest. So I went back to my handsaw after realizing it's probably a safety violation if I was in any type of OSHA working environment. So this handsaw is a lot safer. It takes a little bit longer, but you know you're not going to chop off your hand in this process, at least most likely. So always follow a professional's advice, not mine. Next, we just have to sand it. So I went from 80 to all the way up to 220 grit increments. This is a good way to get nice and smooth. And then from there, I'm mixing in a little bit of glue and sawdust. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I have a few little cracks in my piece. You know, it's not always going to be a perfectly tight glue up. So this is a great way to fill in those cracks that you have because you're cutting so many pieces. Things warp, things expand. It's all part of the process. So do not feel bad if you do something like this. Even the professionals do stuff. Now this takes a little bit of time and you want to give it a day to dry, but as soon as you're done completing all the little crack filling, you want to take a high grit sandpaper. I used 200 and just went right over the entire piece just to make sure I got anything that was loose because when you let it dry, it can cause a little bit of issues later. Now this is where I got a lot of heat in my last video. I used a different type of cutting method and people said that wasn't safe, so I'm trying a different method here using my miter saw. And I'm just chopping off the edges because I already have it squared up and straight. So just these little pieces need chopped off. Once again, I'm sure someone in the comments is going to say this isn't safe. So don't listen to me for safety advice. Now this last part here, I just need to clean up the final edge. I already cut off 3 of the 4 sides. And now I just want to get the final edge cut here. Once again, you got to watch for kickbacks here because there is a chance these small pieces could fly back at me. But because they're so small and I'm wearing safety glasses, it's really not too big of a danger. But once again, always be safe. Talk to a professional when you're doing this stuff. All right, now this last part here, I want to make the juice grooves for this. And a lot of people have a juice groove jig, and I think that's great. But if you're trying to save on a budget, what you can use is actually just a piece of wood and 2 clamps. So I made my mark, and I knew exactly where my cutting bit was at. And then I used the piece of wood, this is actually a piece of nice Paduke, just as a guide. And what I was able to do is make 1 cut each way. So I made my first cut here, and then I'm going to flip it over on its side, make the horizontal cut as well, and then do my 3rd and 4th cut. This is a great and simple way to make things easy, affordable, and also give you a great product in the end without spending $80 at a hardware store to pay for a juice grig. Now you'll notice I have a little bit of a burn mark there, which really isn't a big deal. It's because I left my router there for a little bit too long. So in order to get rid of that, I'm just going to go around and sand everything and also sand that little section out. It'll come out no problem, but ideally just try to keep a better pace when you're moving your router around the piece. Now this last part here is just adding a 1/4 inch roundover bit. I really like this look because 1, it protects the piece. If you have a sharp corner on an edge of a piece of wood, it's very likely that can crack if it gets hit or dropped. So this helps prevent that from happening. 2, I think it looks good, and 3, it's also safer for people using it. If you have little kids at home or a dog or whatever it may be, it's less likely that sharp corner can poke them in the eye or hit them in the head and cut them. Now this last part here is just called water popping, and what we're doing is spraying the board with water in order to raise the grain, and then from there we're going to sand it off, and this will help prevent any issues when the first time it gets wet, and also you can see any glue marks, which are those little white marks there, that's to sand off as well. Now it's crazy, we went from these pieces of wood into this beautiful cutting board. Now the last part is just to add the mineral oil, and I love this part. I think it looks incredible. I love how the grain really pops. You can see the dark walnut, the maple, the cherry, and I really, really love this type of board. I hope you guys got a good use out of this. I hope maybe you can use this to help make a board of your own, maybe make one for a friend or family member. It's something that will last a lifetime. They look incredible, and many, many people love them. So thank you for watching, and have a great day.